Hey everyone, this is kind of going to be a follow-up video to my Charlie Kirk video, and when I did that video I was still pretty fired up and shaken about the whole thing. There were a number of people who subbed to my channel, and to those people, welcome to my channel. I'm not necessarily a political channel, really. Like, I kind of just talk about various things and stuff that are on my mind that I want to vent about or express myself about. And this was one of those things. And this is kind of going to be more of that. So, to anyone who's new, that's kind of what I'm all about. But, it's been about a week, I think. And, I really want to try. I've been trying to, after the first few days, I was trying not to focus on this so much because it really just kind of baffled me. Just some of the reactions. Like, it really baffled me that there were this many people out there who just really have no conscience, no, like, little to no empathy, who, I don't even know how to describe it. And my thoughts are probably going to be kind of scattered. I kind of mentally prepared myself for what I was going to say in this video, but now I'm just kind of like, everything's rushing in all at once. Like, there's so much that I want to say in this video, like I said in the last video. I think one thing that I want to make clear is that, for me, it's not about left and right. It's about whether you're a good person or not. It's about whether you're a decent person or not. Because the thing is, you don't have to agree with someone on everything. You don't have to even like someone to look at what happened and say, this is horrible, and stuff like this shouldn't happen. And the people who are celebrating it and who are happy about it, or saying that it's not a bad thing that it happened, or who are expressing any sort of sympathy, or people who aren't celebrating it, but are also saying, well, he had this opinion and he spread this sort of rhetoric or whatever, so therefore, yada, yada, yada. I don't think you guys realize that that sort of reasoning and that sort of argument is a slippery slope. You do realize that that could very, very easily extend to you or someone that you care about. Because for all you know, some of the opinions that you hold could actively offend someone else, or there's someone else might strongly disagree with it. And by your own logic, if you were to get shot in the throat or killed for it, the same reasoning could apply, and therefore murdering people you disagree with is okay. It really is as simple as that, and I don't understand how all of these people don't get that and don't understand that and don't realize it. I can only chalk it up to these people don't have enough wisdom or perspective to understand that or see that or even stop and think critically about it for a second. I don't even know if I necessarily believe in karma per se, but, look, you guys who are posting videos on TikTok and wherever else, cheering this on, celebrating about it, and being all glib and sarcastic and stuff, what goes around comes around eventually, and that's not a threat for me or anything, or that's not me saying that the same thing's gonna happen to you, but I'm just saying, if you're gonna celebrate something that fucked up, if anything bad that may come to you in the future, and I hope that look, I'm not saying that I want bad things to happen to people. I'm not, unless you're like a serial child molester or rapist or a murderer, like, I don't want bad things to happen to anyone. But I'm just saying, if you end up suffering your own misfortunes later on, you have to kind of think, if it's not because there's some divine thing that's paying attention, and you might think back on when you were celebrating a terrible thing like this. there should be no caveat. There should be no, well, I realized that in my video I was saying that too, but I just wanted to make the point clear that I wasn't coming at it from someone who was a Charlie Kirk fan. I wasn't coming at it from someone who agreed with him on everything. I was trying to make the point that despite all of that, it had me shaken up. I wasn't even a follower, and it had me shaken up and upset. And I think that's really, like I said last week, that's really the two, that's really what the two groups are. It's not the left and the right. Because there are a number of prominent people who would consider themselves liberal or left-wing who had reactions and who made videos mourning Charlie Kirk and who were upset and calling it out and were just completely disgusted by it and horrified by it. Shoe on Head actually made a video about this. She's a self-proclaimed liberal. She's always been a left-winger, but go watch her video. She was horrified by it and horrified by the reactions. And I think the people who are framing this, who are trying to make this a political thing, who are trying to make it left versus right, and yeah, the right's declaring war on the left and whatever, that's the completely wrong way to go about this, and it completely throws nuance out the window completely. And there were a few comments on my Charlie Kirk video that were like trying to go into that stuff, and it's just like I'm not here for that. And the thing is, Dave Smith, I watched his. I've been watching a number of videos today in the last few days, and Dave Smith uploaded his video on it. If you don't know who Dave Smith is, he's a comedian. He's also a libertarian. He's kind of like a right-leaning libertarian, whatever. But he made a good point, and he kind of used an analogy. It's kind of like you can tell a lot about a person by how they treat people. Like, if you're at a restaurant with someone and they're super fucking rude to the waiting staff, it can say a lot about them, and that's true. And Dave Smith made the point that he would rather, like, he would prefer someone who is like a communist, like an actual communist, but who is super, super kind to waiting staff, as opposed to someone who may agree with him on everything, but who is a dick to waiting staff. Basically making the point that at the end of the day, it's not about politics or political stuff or political opinions. It's about how good of a person you are at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, and I feel like a lot of people have forgotten this or have just stopped realizing this, you being a good or bad person does not hinge on what your politics are. Like, just because you champion every social cause there is, it doesn't mean that you're a good person, because you could still be an asshole. Like, yeah, you might say that you support this or you support that or whatever, but it really doesn't mean, it's just words. It doesn't mean anything. And words can be spinned, and people can put on a mask, people can put on an act. You can still be a dick. And sure, Charlie was very, very conservative, and he had some positions that, but that's the thing. Charlie was willing to sit down and have conversations with people. And yeah, there's a bunch of sound bites out there and short videos, whatever, but like you can look up the full version of these videos, and again, like Charlie was willing to sit down with someone he disagreed with and have a conversation with them face to face. He wasn't afraid to do that. And look, I mean, by all accounts, people who knew him personally, people who were friends with him, who knew him in real life outside of the political arena, everyone who knew him says that he was a genuinely nice guy, he was a genuinely good person. And it goes back to that whole thing of, whether your politics does not dictate whether you are a good person or not. you know, I've seen a lot of things said about, you know, Charlie, about how he was a vile person, which I would like to know exactly how he was a vile person outside of him having opinions that offends you or that you disagree with. Seriously. And, you know, I think that the people who are celebrating this, and I assume there's probably people on the right wing who are celebrating this too. I have no doubt. There are plenty of people on the right wing who dislike Charlie too, you know, for different reasons. But, you know, and I don't mean to sound like a hypocrite because I'm saying it's not about politics, and it's not. But it's you know, furthers the point that I'm trying to make here, is that a lot of people who had that reaction to Charlie dying and being shot, I assume a lot of them were probably progressives or people who consider themselves to be very, very, very liberal, or however they would describe themselves. You know, whatever. There's a lot of gray area. There's a lot of nuance. You know, and that's a different topic in and of itself. But the point is that these same people would consider themselves very inclusive. They don't judge people based on their religion or sexual orientation or whatever else. Very open-minded people, supposedly. But yet, when it comes to things they disagree with or people they disagree with, especially if they consider that to be an egregious act, it's surprising how bigoted and narrow-minded they become and how closed off they actually are. And they probably consider themselves to be good people because, again, they champion the most popular social causes right now. Again, being very inclusive of all people, supposedly. But yet, their reactions to this are, you know, I'm not religious at all, and this hasn't caused me to have some sort of awakenings. I know some people are saying it's caused them to like want to have some sort of spiritual awakening. It hasn't done that for me. You know, if it has done that for others, that's fine. I'm not bashing that. I'm just saying it hasn't done that for me. I'm still not really religious at all. I'm still agnostic. You know, this hasn't changed that, but despite that, some of these reactions and these people are kind of evil. I don't think it's a stretch to say that. Evil, lacking perspective, mentally unhinged. I think these people need to do a lot of soul searching. They need to do a lot of soul searching. They need to do a lot of reflecting. They need to gain some perspective. I don't want anything bad to happen to them. I would hope they don't lose any loved ones either, or anything like that. But, and I'm being generous right now because there are other people who are saying that they are like, who are saying worse things about these people. But like, I think that there's some growth that needs to happen there. Maybe some maturing. Just a lot of soul searching. And those people, I'm kind of, the fact that there's so many people, it really kind of, I think, made a lot of people realize how many people like that there are right now among us, and that scares the shit out of me. That really scares the shit out of me. Those are the people that I'm scared of. You know, and I think Shu actually made a good point too, because she said that, you know, because she's, you know, in left-wing circles, she's friends with some of these people who had the same mentality and reaction to this. You know, and she made the point that if she was like a clone of herself, but like with different opinions, they wouldn't mourn her death either. They would be celebrating her death too if the same thing happened to her. And when you think about it from that perspective, it's very sobering. So, yeah. So, your politics doesn't dictate whether you're a good or bad person. It just doesn't. I've come across people who I agree with a ton on, almost everything on, but I think they're a dick. And I would never want to be around them or in their company. They seem like they'd be miserable company, and I would dislike them as a person, even if we do agree on most things. I've come across people who I disagree with on a number of things who I think are great people, who I absolutely love as people. And it doesn't matter to me whether we agree or disagree on things or not. I like them as a person. I like their energy. I like how they treat me. And I would be devastated if anything happened to them. Yeah. I think I've said just about everything that I want to, but just keep that in mind. Again, the logic of, well, he said this and he had this opinion and he was this, so therefore, it justifies it. Again, just remember that is a very, very that is an argument that could have a domino effect. And if our society was to completely collapse and break down, it's an argument that could be used to justify anyone being murdered, because that could literally apply to anyone at that point. Ask yourself, would you want the same thing to happen to you? Just because you may have opinions that someone else disagrees with, or because of those opinions you're viewed as a vile person that needs to be taken out because you pose some sort of threat. Would you want the same thing to happen to you? Would you want the same thing to happen to a loved one or a best friend for the same reasons? Because it could easily apply to you too. So, that's all. I'm done with this one. We'll see what comes next. So, yeah. Peace out. Have a good day.